Psalm 21, 1 and 2 says, O Lord, in your strength the king will be glad, and in your salvation how greatly he will rejoice. You've given him his heart's desire, and you have not withheld the request of his lips. Well, if you're joining us in reading through the 6-month reading plan of the book of Psalms, today's reading is Psalm 21, and I encourage you to read that psalm. Well, if you were in an Orthodox monastery, you'd hear this psalm sung during the early morning reading between Saturday night and Sunday morning. They traditionally read through the entire book of Psalms between Saturday night and early Sunday morning. It ends about 2 o'clock. And this has been done since the earliest days of the church. We might even see a reference to this in Acts 12, 1 through 12. If you remember, this is the story of Peter's miraculous release from prison. He says it was asleep between two guards, Acts 12, 6, indicating that the time was probably pretty late. The psalm is divided into 3 parts. The first part, verses 1 through 6, focuses on a general description of how Christ is blessed. The second part, verses 7 through 12, focuses on Christ's victory over death and his enemies. And the third part, verse 13, is a benediction extolling the Lord's strength and the believer's response to that power. Well, verse 1 rejoices in the salvation which God has provided. This is also pictured in Hebrews 12:2. It says, fixing your eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and he sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Now here we have the victory at Passover by David, writing in verse 2, you have given him his heart desire, and you have not withheld the request of his lips. Now this brings us to Jesus' prayer in John 17, where Jesus prays for us, and we have the resulting salvation and bond together through his blood on the cross. What an opportunity to reach into Jesus' heart and mind and look at the things for which he truly cared. Even in his most desperate hour of need, rather than looking for fellowship with God, his focus was on us. He was asking God to protect us, and he was asking God to bind us together. And he was asking us that we may become one with each other, not only as fellow believers, but also in a relationship with God the Father through Jesus the Son. Well, eternal life is not just an extension of our current life. It is something totally new, and it reaches far above whatever we can wish for in this life. In John 5, 25 and 26, Jesus tells us of the resurrection and the life which is to come for all believers. But just as there is a blessing for those who believe, there's a cursing for those who are enemies of God. Verses 7 through 12 brings us to that period of judgment on those who are enemies of Christ. Their doom is sealed. They will not succeed in their plan. And he is not only addressing those humans who are enemies of Christ, but also Satan and his angels. Our response to this knowledge about who Christ is and what he has done through, what has been done through him for both believers and non-believers should be one of praise. Our hearts should be lifted up because of who Christ is and what he has done. He has overcome death by death and taken the fear of death away from those who are believers, Hebrews 2, 14 and 15. Now, what will you do with your salvation? Will you use it to glorify God, or will you use it to glorify yourself? And if you would like a PDF copy of this entire reading plan, please send an email to phineasjacobus@runningtohim.net.